All right, welcome to an episode of Who's Got Next, brought to you by Maize and Blue Review. We cover Michigan athletics for the Rivals Network over at michigan.rivals.com. Today is obviously a big day, early signing day, which has basically just become signing day at this point, right? There's a couple folks that'll linger into February, but we're seeing a lot of signatures already early this morning. So we're going to take a moment here to kind of go through the signatures that have come in, talk about this class. We're not expecting a lot of fireworks today. Do think Michigan is in the driver's seat for a new commit. And then obviously the big flip candidate, Gatlin Bear, will be signing in February. So we're not expecting anything from him today. But I am joined by a special guest, our recruiting reporter over at Maize and Blue Review, on the beat for multiple teams. Not a lot of guys shoulders deep into recruiting as much as Seth Berry right now. So Seth, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be on. I was kind of looking this morning, and it's been a while since I've been on a podcast with you guys, and I kind of had to dust the mic off and kind of find some of the recording equipment that was laying around my apartment. So but we're here, and yeah, I'm excited to be on and talk about some of these guys in Michigan's 24 class here.
We've kept you locked up and writing, yes. Right? Not as bad as Brock. I don't know if you saw our podcast where Brock had to do an episode from a closet.
Yes, I saw part of the episode where there's always something new with Brock, really. I mean, whether he doesn't know what Tommy Boy is, or he's we had some good conversations covering the Michigan games, when we covered him about your guys' podcast and the hard time you guys like to give him. So that's I always enjoy that.
Yeah, but you and him both work really hard. We appreciate you guys. Yeah. It's just fun to joke around. So obviously, like I said, not a lot of fireworks. This class has largely been known since summer. There was just an insane amount of commitments early this year. So the names are starting to come in. We'll get to those in a second. But if you can kind of just give me your overall helicopter view of this class, how it's come together, and what has frankly been a pretty boring end at the finish line here.
Yeah. It's kind of when I was coming in to work with you guys last year, it was kind of a different vibe, just kind of with how the class went. You had Cam Calhoun sign late. I mean, Jair Hill, on signing day. So, you might have one of those today with Michigan as well. But, yeah, I mean, it was much different in terms of how the structure of the class was put together and the timing of everything. And under Jim Harbaugh, it's been a lot of these times where, it's kind of a slow start and they finish well. And this time it was, the summer, June, there were quite a few commits. And then, from there, everything kind of tapered off and the class has been set for the most part, for quite a while. But yeah, I think, people have, there's a lot of excitement about this class early on, especially with the commits that were rolling in, some of the guys that were obtained by Michigan, Jordan Marshall, at running back, Mr. Ohio. That's Absolutely. A big one for the Wolverines. I think overall, people have, I think maybe been not frustrated, but, it just, the momentum kind of tapered off. I think that the feeling was, but I think overall you look at this class and you pinpoint the areas of where it's strong, position wise. And I think, as long as Jim Harbaugh is at Michigan or, even in a future world where Sharon Moore took over at Michigan, they're going to predicate themselves along the offensive line, right? They're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to be physical at the line of scrimmage, run between the tackles and control the ball. And when you talk about wanting to do that and what you want your program to do now and into the future, this offensive line group is really, really good. In my opinion. So, you talked about guys like Luke Hamilton and Andrew Sprague, who's kind of shot up the boards his senior season. So, yeah, so I think when you look at the overall scope of the class, I think you got to really look at that offensive line group and say, hey, this is legitimate, and this is how you want to build your program.
You took my thoughts right out of my head, man. I agree with you completely, because I know people are looking at the ranking and probably thinking, what in the world, 3-time Big Ten champions, college football playoff berth, etc. We should have a top 5 class, right? And when you look at it, though, I think Michigan really didn't want to waste a lot of time this year and just went and got their guys. And we've seen what's happened now with high school recruiting and guys coming in and then jumping to the portal right away, right? Michigan's building in the recruiting class, adding some guys in the portal, right? But like you said, when you look at how Michigan has won games the last 3 years, you talk about the offensive line, they literally have future left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. Like, the 5 guys. I wouldn't be shocked if junior year, all 5 of those dudes are starting. You brought up Andrew Sprague. I think he's Michigan's best left tackle prospect in a really long time. Again, offensive line, running the ball. You bring up Jordan Marshall, Micah Kaapana, an interesting prospect out of powerhouse Bishop Gorman, right? Jaden Davis is a guy as a quarterback who just wins and shows leadership abilities. You see his fit there. On defense, versatile defenders that can play multiple spots, right? This class is just a mirror of what Michigan has been doing for the last 3 years. So I'm with you on that. Answer a couple questions real quick, and then I'm going to ask you about the one new commit we are expecting today, which Shadyville said. Any surprise commits or flips we can look forward to today? Like I said, right now it feels like just the one. We'll get into that in a second. Shadyville also asked about some Harbaugh rumors that started yesterday with the contract potentially being done. If you head over to michigan.rivals.com and get in the den, Josh has an update on what occurred yesterday and what is coming out of those rumors. Jim Harbaugh and the Regents having a meeting yesterday, so you can head over there and check that out. So let's talk about the one possible new commit that could come in today. We practiced this before we came on, and I'm probably still going to mess it up, but edge defender from Maryland. So if he does join the class, that'll be 3 Maryland edge defenders. That's really become a pipeline for Michigan in recent years, obviously with Biff Pogge coaching over at St. Francis. But Lugard Edekpe. Hey, that wasn't bad. Yeah. Lugard Edekpe. So he's come on really late in this cycle. I think a lot of people, Florida State offered late. He ended up canceling that visit. I wasn't familiar with him because he came on late. And then I put on his tape, and the guy is long, man. Crazy long, athletic. I mean, you don't have to try real hard to imagine what, Ben Herbert having a year or two with that guy is going to do for him in this system.
Yeah. I think, this is a guy that obviously Michigan found late. And when you talk about, him kind of being an edge rusher, that's a spot that, Michigan's lost a couple guys there. You talk about Elias Rudolph that flipped to Miami. That was kind of, really long, kind of similar type of prospect. Then you talk about the Smith twins that went over to Kentucky. So overall, kind of at the position, it gotten kind of thin when it was, it was a deep class, somewhat to begin with.
We were talking about whether they were going to take like 7 guys,
right? Yeah,
at the edge spot at one point, and then they lost some recruiting battles too as well. And then, like you said, obviously the flip of Rudolph, but.
Yeah. So that was, I think that was an area that Michigan was looking for. Hey, if they can get another guy here, then let's do it. And this happened to be the case. I think obviously Maryland is in the mix with he recently took a visit there. Obviously being from Maryland, but yeah, I was the same way. Like I put on his film. And just he's raw, he recently transitioned, kind of made the basketball, the football transition, and he has, developing to do in that area. But, very athletic, and even like he needs that one signature go-to pass rush move that I'm sure he'll get when he develops and he gets to Michigan. But even when, he engages with his man and coming off the edge, even when he doesn't beat his guy, it could be a quick offensive tackle or something, he puts his arms up and he knocks down passes. He doesn't even necessarily have to get to the quarterback to be effective. And just that length in his frame and his athletic potential, coming off the edge and doing some things that I think could be really beneficial to Michigan's defense. I think he has a lot of upside. And his potential is really great. He has a high ceiling, I believe.
Yeah, you're spot on. Obviously, you know what you're doing. You do this for your living, so I'm with you. He is raw, but like you said, Michigan's pass rush, especially the last couple of years, post Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, hasn't been as much about sacks as it has been just disrupting the QB, right? Generating pressure, like you brought up, batted balls, just being annoying, right? And then also being able to impact the run game. So he seems like such an obvious fit to me. I'm not sure. Do we have I don't think we have the time for him, do we?
I don't think he announced a time. He said, he said he shut down his recruitment, that it's over, and he has his decision locked in. It's just a matter of when that's going to happen. So,
okay.
Yep.
So we are expecting that to be good news for Michigan. Obviously, as soon as we see it, we'll have coverage over at michigan.rivals.com. I know, Seth, you already have a couple articles ready to go, so we'll post those as soon as the time comes in. Now, we have had one flip already. A gentleman we felt pretty good about Michigan getting early on in the process, and then it felt like he was going to stay home, Pennsylvania, Penn State, and then he ends up at USC, and then now he has flipped to Michigan. That's David Pali. He's their nose of the future, right? That was kind of, in my mind, there are some defensive linemen, some D tackles in this class, some guys that might be called edges that I think are going to end up defensive tackles. But this was kind of the one gap in the class for me, and I didn't know where it was going to come from. So getting a guy they were interested in early to flip over, kind of a big ad here for Michigan.
Yeah. The fact that Pali was able to make that flip and come to Michigan was really big for the class. Like I said, his recruitment was a little interesting, where it looked like Michigan, then it was Penn State, then USC came into the picture, committed to there, and then it's back to Michigan. So, but it's a guy we felt good about early on, and I know Josh did for a while too, and he made a future cast at one point, and so that was big for Michigan to be able to snag him. He kind of talked about Michigan always felt like home, and that just the fact that he was committed elsewhere, but really the Wolverines were in his heart the whole time. But that's a big pickup as far as the position for the class, because like you said, there's a couple edge guys that could end up coming inside and putting on weight and things like that could help in that area. And when you talk about the interior defensive line, but this is a guy that is a true D tackle and be able to take up a lot of space and help with the run game and things like that. So good pickup there for the Wolverines.
And just so we're clear, now we're talking about guys whose signatures are in. So David Pali is officially signed, Michigan Wolverine. Another gentleman who has already signed this morning as well. One of the big early wins in this class for Michigan, and that's Jeremiah Beasley, right? So we always talk about, the best players in Michigan go to Michigan, that whole narrative. But this was a big one. When you talk about Michigan's relationship with Belleville, and Jeremiah Beasley was a strong Michigan State lean for a long time, right? And then his half brother, Malik Carr, playing there, who's now in the transfer portal, obviously. But for Michigan, and again, this was before everything blew up with Mel Tucker, right? At this point, it felt like Mel Tucker was going to be at MSU for a while, right? At the time, I thought this was a pretty big win in terms of the trajectory of that rivalry. Obviously, it's kind of been reset now with Jonathan Smith coming into Michigan State, but still, Beasley, also they had to kind of re-recruit him away with the loss of Chris Partridge too, right? We still don't know who the linebacker coach will be moving forward, but Jeremiah Beasley is signed, is a part of the Michigan class, and kind of a unique linebacker to be coming in as well.
Yeah, and I think that was big. After Partridge was dismissed from the program, they kept all those linebacker recruits, so that was big on Michigan's part to be able to do that. But yeah, Beasley's one of the guys I was able to see in person. For one of their playoff games, he ended up playing actually only a half, and then he coached a lot of the second half on the headset, and he's got a football mind, and he loves the game, and when I watched, it was they didn't run toward him a lot, but I mean, running back, man, like he could play running back at the college level. And he talked about that early on in his recruitment and saying, he wants to commit to a program that he could potentially, play on the offensive side of the ball. He backed off of that later on when I asked him and said, well, if Michigan ever needs me to do that, I'm open to it. But, I am a true linebacker and that is my position. And, but man, I was blown away watching him at running back, bigger guy.
He's a good running back.
Yeah, I think he could play that position, honestly. But, as a linebacker, really hard hitter, downhill player, sideline to sideline speed. Like I like a lot of elements of his game at linebacker and the defensive side of the ball. So no doubt this is a big win for Michigan. Like you say, Malik Carr was at Michigan State. It took a while to kind of, I think gradually Michigan was able to sway him and, make him realize that, the Wolverines were the program for him. And really, really big pickup. And that was, that was a nice win for Michigan for sure.
And then obviously people are asking about Beasley's high school teammate, Bryce Underwood, 2025 quarterback. Not going to get into that too much, trying to get through the 24 coverage. But obviously the last, few weeks or couple months, things have really started to trend heavily towards LSU. He took a surprise visit to Alabama. We have not said Michigan's out of it, haven't put any projections in there. But I'd imagine if you were to guess today where Underwood ends up, you're probably picking the Bayou.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to honestly, like Bryce Underwood is so tight to the vest and, you talk to him and go to his games and he is, he's a true pro at what he does in terms of keeping his, his ducks in a row and things like that. And, Jeremiah doesn't, obviously doesn't give away any information about him. I'd never ask him to do that anyway, but, they're both fun. They're both cool, but Underwood, he's trended toward LSU. And I think that's the direction it's going. I don't, obviously not a lock, I don't think at this point, but I think it's kind of trending in that direction gradually for a little bit.
Yeah, and he will announce on January 6th, so a couple weeks there. Some folks asked with Beasley, Haskins, Mullings, 3.0 kind of thing. I think of Khaleke Hudson as well, just a guy that their running back tape really stuck out to me, right? So speedy, athletic, but physical linebacker. I think he's going to be phenomenal coming in. The other guy I wanted to get to who this has been a really tight-knit group, right? Like I think about, I think it was 2016 that the group was really tight-knit and constantly communicating with each other on social media and, active recruiters, if you will, as well. And this year, very tight-knit group, right? We saw these guys constantly communicating with each other and recruiting. And the leader of that, if you will, and in my opinion, I'm assuming you're going to agree, is Jacob Oden, who is signed and coming in another Michigan prospect who for a while felt like might be a Michigan State lean. And, obviously Michigan adds him and he's just been all blue from the get-go.
Yeah. Oden is one of those guys, you could talk about Luke Hamilton as well, that have really kind of galvanized the class and tried to make it better in terms of, their efforts in recruiting other guys to try to join them, in the class. And, I think he's been really good in that regard. I know he was really on Boo Carter at one point, before he went over to Tennessee there and committed to the Volunteers. But just a lot of guys that Jacob Oden he's been all in on the class. I've talked to him several times. As a player, I mean, he talked about he was one thing he really improved upon was, and you saw it, even if you watched a couple minutes of his highlight tapes, in the state championship game, I think he forced a fumble at the goal line, just, perfect hit, shoulder on the ball, had them advance in the MHSAA playoffs, and they end up winning a state championship there. He kind of reminds me of, like, his athletic upside is much better. But in terms of, like, you remember Brad Hawkins at Michigan, who was always just like right place, right time. I mean, he was solid. He always knew where he's supposed to be. Just in terms of the way he played that safety position, I see a lot of similar traits in Oden, except more athletic potential, right? More NFL, type of potential with Jacob Oden. But, coached by his dad, Harper Woods, Rod, football mind, just very smart and disciplined player that's going to bring a lot to Michigan's defense when he steps on campus.
Yeah, and when you talk about just, again, I was saying those versatile defenders in the secondary, he is such a perfect fit. Um, Another player kind of similar, I'm interested in your assessment of when he committed, kind of came out of nowhere, and then people were looking into him, and he's obviously, well, I can't get him to pull up now. Hold on 1 second. Fun. Oh, because I've been, you know what I did? There were so many Smiths in this class at one point.
Yes.
So I just looked for, because we did Jacob Oden, I looked for Jacob Smith. I'm talking about Jaden Smith,
Yes.
who's listed as an athlete. I could see him at like 3 or 4 different spots in this defense. It's obviously going to kind of depend how he develops and you know what happens when he gets on campus. But tell me a little bit about Jaden Smith. Not Jacob.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's at Kentucky now.
Yeah. Well, Jaden, do you have his measurables up?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah,
he is 6'3", 190.
Yeah, 190.
They're calling him a linebacker now. He was a safety at one point.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, so
yeah, he's so thin. Yeah, he's a thin build. You know, thin, tall, athletic type of guy. It is interesting to where talk about where he fits on this Michigan defense. You know, is he an edge rusher? Is he going to play back in the secondary? Is he kind of he's a hybrid type of guy that I don't know if the Michigan defensive coaching staff has a direct plan on what they want to do with him first. But that'll be what spring practices and when he gets on campus and starts practicing and what that'll be for. But I'm very intrigued by him because I'm kind of with you. I don't really know where he'll best fit. I mean, with Ben Herbert, I'm sure he'll put weight on. That'll be the first thing. He'll have to put some weight on, no matter what position he plays, really. But I really like him. Long, another athletic type of guy. Good, great speed off the edge, being able to get to the quarterback, get into the opposing team's backfields. And has the versatility too to be able to drop in coverage, right? Because you see Michigan like to do that a lot, with Jalen Harrell. He can get to the pass rusher, but he can also drop into coverage and take away passing lanes and, take away the screen game. So is that the type of guy that Jaden Smith will be? We'll see. But a lot of options, right? That's kind of the story of this class with the defense, and you hit on it earlier. A lot of versatility, a lot of guys who can play multiple spots, and maybe they start at one spot and then end up 2 or 3 years down the road at Michigan in another position. So he's an intriguing one for sure.
Intriguing is the right word, right? We've seen guys like this where we're like, we're not really sure where they fit, and then even coming in as freshmen, they've added 40 pounds, and we're like, what? Yeah. Breon Ishmael comes to mind, who is a guy we're like, at linebacker, we'll see. And just, he's an edge rusher. Okay. Right. So yeah, Jaden's a guy where if he adds enough weight, you could see him as a true edge, or he could kind of have his own jack role, like you said, as a pass rushing linebacker. Right. I do think the pass rushing part of it, I'm with you, is a big strength of his and where they'd like to see him. But if that's as a safety that they can blitz or whatever, I'm for that too. But like you said, that's the point, is they're getting these football players who, and you brought up, sorry, I'm already losing track. Who with the basketball player background? Were we talking about that with Lugard? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. We see that a lot. These 2-sport athletes, they play both ways. They play multiple sports. They're in track, things like that. Michigan's just looking for athletes, and they feel like, hey, once we get you on and we start working with you and develop, we'll find a spot for you to contribute. And that's just kind of been their MO here. Trying to go through any other new signatures here. We've got Manuel Bagel, defensive line commit. He was one of the early signees. We talked about Jacob Oden. Let's get to this. Is a big one, I think, because it's been a topic of conversation with Michigan's style of play and maybe how it's impacting recruiting, and that's at wide receiver. Maize and Blue is a guy that Michigan felt really, really good about, and then there was kind of this moment of, we're going to lose him to Wisconsin, right? And then even late here, I had people ask me questions about being sure he was going to commit or not. He has committed, right? So Maize and Blue is in the class. Tell me about him as a wide receiver, also a returner. I think he's really, really underrated there. But I mean, he's kind of the prototype wide receiver for this Michigan offense that we've seen the last few years.
Yeah. I think Stewart is the type of receiver that they've really tried to hit on, and in this class and then past classes too. Just that inside, quick twitch type of guy that can get off the ball really quickly and beat guys. Doesn't necessarily have to stretch them, 40, 50 yards down the field, but he is really good at getting open, right? And good route running ability. And like I said, that quick twitch athleticism that Michigan really tends to like in this offense in terms of getting the ball out quickly and, just making it easy for quarterbacks, like Jaden Davis coming in and guys that can get open right off the line of scrimmage, and, you can find him on a quick hitter type of receiver. So I like him, I like his game. I'm sure Michigan fans would really like to see, more of those big outside, Nico Collins type of receivers that can get down the field. And eventually I think Michigan's going to need to recruit, a little more heavily at those type of receivers as well. Cause you need a balance in an offense that, you can hit it down the field on a deep ball. And you can also, hit the slot guy as well. So, but Stewart's game, I really like it a lot. I think he's going to be a good one.
Yeah. I agree with that. The Darius Clemens is the guy that, we obviously expected to be that big body receiver and haven't seen it yet. And now Michigan appears to be addressing that need in the transfer portal with a few different players they've been looking at, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Darius Clemens, if you're a big body receiver and the talent and skills Clemens has, and you're not seeing him get used, it's kind of tough to sell that recruiting pitch, right? If you're Michigan, I think it's real easy. We talked about selling results versus selling, hope or vision or whatever it might be. So in a lot of positions, Michigan can sell results. At wide receiver, I feel like it's still kind of, hey, we need this. We want you to be that guy, if you will. So, all right, Seth, I know we're getting up to 9:30, and I have another gentleman that I can swap you out for. So appreciate your knowledge. Like I said, I'm sure you think about this stuff in your dreams, man. That's just crazy. Yeah. So thank you for all your work this recruiting cycle. We're obviously going to keep an eye on more content coming out today with, hopefully the commitment from, can you try and say the name for me since I already went once here? Lugard.
Yes. Yes. Well, I wrote down the pronunciation. Edak Pay. Yeah. There you go. And then, I did the Google Translate thing where you write down the pronunciation and say it off of that.
And I still mess it up. Yeah. But, all right. So thank you so much for all your work, buddy. And everybody, you can follow him on Twitter. I don't have your thing up anymore because it was in your face. But what's your Twitter handle? It's at
Barry_Seth14.
All right, there we go. Seth Barry, Maize and Blue, recruiting reporter. Thank you so much, brother. You have a good one. And we will obviously, keep an eye on your coverage. So I'm excited to bring in my normal partner in crime. He is hobbled, to say the least. Been fighting some illnesses. I've pulled him in from the bullpen. He wasn't going to come in today, so if he's sick and disgusting, you guys just got to deal with it. But the Intel insider and publisher of Maize and Blue Review, you cannot hold him down, Mr. Josh Hedsky. How you doing, buddy? You're on mute. We're off to a great start.
Yeah, I forgot I had muted myself. I'm good. Yeah,
you look okay.
Yeah, I feel okay, but I'm good. Good day.
You love signing day, right? You've only done a couple of these.
Yeah, not my first rodeo, to say the
least. So Seth and I were just kind of going through some of the signatures we have in already. We did talk a little bit at the start about the one new commit that we're expecting, or at least is trending positively for Michigan. We'll say Lugard Idakpe. If you kind of want to give me your thoughts on him, I'm really excited about him as a prospect. Super long, athletic. Seth talked about how raw he is, but it's just not hard to see how he can fit in this defense. If Michigan's able to get him, you've got the trio of Maryland edge defenders with him, Devin Baxter.
Sorry, dude.
You're all right, dude. You're like I said, I appreciate you doing this. I just knew if I had to try and ride solo for a little bit, it might not go up. But anyway, you got any thoughts on Lugard?
Yeah, no, just yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it here. I think it's another identification by Mike Elston and staff here of a guy that in a long line of I don't want to say projects, but a guy that they can project to be an effective edge rusher. There's just so many I mean, you can see it with Dominic Nichols in this class too. You can see it in so many other guys. It's just, yeah, the promise is there. You can see it in the athletic ability. You can see it, on film. There's just another guy that they can mold into an effective pass rusher on the edge. I feel pretty good about where things stand right now heading into that. And that should be the only bit of fireworks today. And considering, the past month or so, I think, you'll definitely take a boring day compared to where things were a couple weeks ago, for sure.
We were talking with some of our Nebraska folks who obviously had a pretty eventful few days with the flip of Dylan Raiola, and then rumors last night of another 5-star prospect potentially coming over. And I saw your tweet to them, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but you're like, dude, I'm good with boring. We've had a hectic football season. We've gone through most of the signatures. Another one we haven't spoken about yet. I'm really frustrated. We've got Manuel Bagel, but we have Owen Wafel.
Yeah,
it's not Waffle. Yeah. I'll get over it at some point, but his recruitment was obviously, I don't know, what term do we want to use? Interesting. He's committed to Notre Dame, and then he's not, and there's a lot of weird rumors and smoke coming out of that. He joins Michigan rather quickly. He projects kind of in that inside DT role as well. And I talked about with Seth, I felt like the true nose was maybe missing from this class until they flipped David Pally over. Yeah. Now I'm thinking, okay, I almost called him Waffle. Wafel and Pally, that's an interesting interior pair moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I'm not really sure. I don't really want to speculate what happened between him and Notre Dame originally, but Notre Dame's loss is Michigan's gain here. And another guy that you can see the overall picture. It's a guy at 6'2", 290. He's got really good size coming in. Just a guy that you can kind of see Ben Herbert getting his hands on and molding into some, athletic freak in the interior. So, I think him and Pally are really a strong duo in the middle for Michigan. And, it's just, I think the kind of the overall, I guess, idea of this class is that, there's just a lot of promise, a lot of, not necessarily finished products. I mean, obviously there's no finished products coming in, but, not a guy that you immediately come in and say, okay, this is, plug him in right away and he's good. There's some guys that you can kind of, ease along and kind of mold them into some future guys. But Wafel is definitely one of those players that, man, has got a lot of intrigue and size, and then I think he can be an effective defensive lineman for Michigan for sure. I mean, it's hard to look at what Michigan's doing from a defensive recruitment side and not see the picture. Right. 100%. I mean, they're so good at identifying talent and developing talent. It doesn't matter if you're a 3-star, a 5-star, or 2-star, whatever. It's really hard to argue against what they're doing here. So, Wafel's just another one of those guys where you're like, okay, I see what they're doing here. I see the picture. And now you're just kind of waiting for, the picture to kind of, draw itself, so to speak, in the years to come, for sure.
You nailed it. I talked about that at the start of the show. You poor guy. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry.
You're good. I just didn't want to cough on camera.
No, I know. I am the worst human being in the world at being sick. I am such a baby. Like my mom was amazing when I was sick, tucking me in, making me whatever I needed, whatever. So like I get sick and I'm like, Tara, can you? And she gets so pissed. It's just because she fights through any illness, right? She's a mom, so she's got superpowers. Right. But I'm like, baby, can I have some tea? And she's just like, get up. So I appreciate you fighting through. But no, I talked about at the start that I know, especially people who maybe don't follow this super closely, you look at the recruiting ranking and you kind of go, wait, what? This is Michigan back to back Big Ten champions. Like, why don't they have a top 5 class? And I think about, without completely getting off the rails, and how recruiting is changing in this NIL world and the transfer portal and Michigan's strategy there, just in terms of what this team does and how they've been succeeding on the field. You look at this class and it's just like offensive line, check. The type of running backs, check. The leader and winner at quarterback. You and I have talked about forever the dive of Jaden Davis and the rankings, and people consistently talking about at these camps. Well, when they run the football drills and play actual football, Jaden Davis is fantastic. And he's not nailing these shorts and t-shirt drills, and we're like, okay, I'll take that quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. But on defense, like you said, just the type of edge rushers they're getting, the versatile secondary guys that can play all over the field. And yeah, maybe project's not the right word, but when you don't have a Will Johnson in your class, I guess that I'll ask you that question after we talk about one more player. But as far as
after I get the sun out of my face,
as far as who can contribute early, but this is a class that I think is going to develop really well. In a couple of years, people are going to hear a dude's name on the field and be like, whoa, who is that? And go back and look at recruiting rankings and go, oh, look, Michigan found another one, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the first guys that comes to my mind in that round too, I think he was Mason Curtis, the first commit.
He was one of, if not the first. I think him and Beagle or Bagel, whatever they call it. Is it Bagel or Beagle?
I've gone with Bagel. I've already lost Waffle to Waffle.
Yeah, we'll give you Beagle. Him and actually, I think he was the first, Mason Curtis.
Yeah,
I think he was the first.
June of 2022. That's
I mean, it's one of the longest, if not the longest, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, another linebacker from Tennessee. This was there was a while there where we thought Michigan was going to do a lot of damage down in the state of Tennessee, or fighting with the Volunteers, and obviously didn't necessarily go their way a few times. But Mason Curtis is a very interesting prospect to me. He's another one of those where I wonder how they're going to use him, where they're going to play him, but he's going to show up in the fall once and add who knows how much weight. We're going to be like, oh, okay. Because he was pretty light when he first committed as a linebacker, but man, he is aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be curious if he projects out to be a pure linebacker prospect, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely,
it's pronounced Beigel.
Yeah, Beigel. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Those Germans, I tell you.
Hey,
can't trust those Germans. I'm just kidding. No, Curtis. I mean, you got to give credit. You always got to give credit to the kids that stick around the longest. That are the longest.
Yeah, because when they commit early, what does everybody say to us?
Like, right.
Oh, he won't be in the class.
Yeah, he won't stick. He won't stick. Well, someone's got to be the first, right? So, eventually some of those stick. So, Curtis is he's one of the, I guess, unheralded recruits in this class. And he's not going to get a lot of headlines just because he kind of, he committed and kept it moving. And that's pretty much, it's rare these days that you kind of see that. So, you're not gonna hear much about him, just a kid that just got to work and committed and then continued to work on his game. And, I'll be curious to see how he factors into the linebacker room, but, adding depth into that group is going to be interesting. I mean, especially, right now, Michigan doesn't have a linebacker coach. So I'll be curious to see, what the future outlook is going to be, when they kind of hire someone in. I know Shadyville here mentioned if Curtis ends up being an edge. I mean, it's possible. At 6'4", 205. I mean, you could probably yeah, I mean, the outside linebacker position at Michigan is typically, an edge position, kind of like a Jalen Harrell type of role, or Josiah Stewart. So, I mean, he's definitely, not necessarily a pure, a linebacker guy. I mean, he might not be a lineup where Junior Colson is or whatever. You might kind of see him on the edge too. So I guess it kind of, obviously depends on, where the coaching staff sees him, but B, where he develops physically too. I think that kind of, plays a lot into it. I mean, he definitely has the tools to do both. I mean, I think, in his high school, he's more of a linebacker prospect. So I think you'll need more seasoning as an edge, but I think his prospects really just determine on how he gets developed and how he kind of how Ben Herbert kind of molds him in the weight room too. Cause I can definitely, I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, I know it's, to some, it might be like, well, linebacker to edge is kind of a big jump. I mean, not really in Michigan's defense. I mean, when you're talking about an outside linebacker, you're really talking about a defensive end. That's kind of got the physicality and athleticism of a linebacker.
Well, so especially the weak side edge is standing the vast majority of the time, drops back into coverage, right?
Yeah.
I get in debates all the time with people when I talk about Michigan's defensive front, especially when they have the 3 defensive tackles, whether that's a 3-4 and the edge players are outside linebackers, or if it's a 5-2 and I'm counting those players as defensive linemen. So yeah, you're spot on there. We've run out of signatures, but just because I feel like it's relevant in this conversation, the guy that I've really been fixated on, another linebacker kind of in that same conversation, is Cole Sullivan.
Yeah. Yep.
It obviously, like you said, depends on how he fills out, but I cannot stop thinking of Chase Winovich, both from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Linebacker, tight end, the way they play. Sullivan, once he decides he's going after a ball carrier, and the way he tackles and the physical finisher, I mean, he looks like an edge to me. And he's, I'll put up his stuff in a little bit here. He's 6'4", 6'5" already too, and only 200 pounds. So again, it'll depend on the weight gain. When he was recruited by Partridge as well, and they told him they love him as a Mike linebacker.
Yeah. Which,
when you think about, Junior Colson's obviously great, but we've talked about he's more of an off-ball linebacker than a true Mike. If Cole Sullivan, with his speed and his pursuit, can turn into a Mike linebacker, I think that'd be great too. But I also think they just don't care, right? It's just like, see what happens. But what do you think of with Cole Sullivan and his potential role development?
Yeah, no, you and I are definitely on the same page with player comp for sure. I mean, I think you and I discussed it as soon as he committed. This is a Chase Winovich type of guy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they just their attitudes are different in Pittsburgh. It's like a physical town. I mean, they, obviously with the Steelers and everything else, that steel resolution, all that kind of stuff. It's
funny though, because there's not so much industry anymore. I don't know if you've been to Pittsburgh recently, but it's like a really gorgeous downtown now.
I haven't been, honestly.
Oh, dude,
I need to go.
PNC Park. Anybody here, baseball fan, whatever, PNC Park needs to be a bucket list. That is the most gorgeous ballpark. This, revolution that kind of started with the Orioles and Camden Yards and moving downtown into like the vintage style. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's small, it's intimate. The view of the bridge and it's gorgeous. But yeah, Pittsburgh's this like really nice town. But yeah, that hard work, the blue collar mentality, that's definitely built into their fiber there.
Yeah, and it's built into Michigan's being too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can see why Harbaugh would like a guy like this. 6'3", 200. I mean, you can. The last 3 guys have been what, 6'2". The last 3 guys we've talked about, like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4".
You start getting the O-line too. I mean, this is a big, from a height standpoint, this is a big team.
And this is Michigan's bread and butter. This has been what has made Michigan so successful these last couple of years is just physicality, size, mass. A guy like, again, Cole Sullivan, 6'3", as an outside linebacker. Yeah, he could be playing at the mic, but he also could be an edge prospect. It's one of those. I don't necessarily want to call him an athlete because I think he's more of a defined linebacker right now, but I know that he'd be open to the switch to defensive end if that's what was needed. I mean, I think he is a little. He needs to put on some more size, and the same argument would go for Mason Curtis too. I mean, they're both not plug and play guys on the edge right now, because I think, you're talking about Jalen Harrell is what, like 220, 230 right now, maybe a little more. I think I'm not sure exactly what his weight is. So, I mean, there is a considerable amount of time to put on some mass, but, yeah, I mean, again, you can look at all these guys and you can see the blueprint of what Michigan wants from these guys, both from a size and athletic standpoint. And, the film speaks for itself. There was a reason why these schools like Notre Dame and all the rest of them wanted these guys so bad, especially Sullivan. So another kid I really like, I think he's one of my sleepers in the class who I think will be really productive at Michigan. And yeah, I mean, it's obvious to see why you can see why there's a comparison to Chase Winovich there. I mean, it's just obvious. I mean, the physicality, both, similar styles of play, that motor that just does not stop, is evident in just watching the tape. So, yeah, I mean, the blueprint continues. I mean, they're not straying far from what's got them to where they are now. So at this point, when you lose players like they're going to after this year, you have to replace them. And, this class is a good step in getting that replacement, and getting that, keeping that, sustaining that winning record for sure.
The sustaining, I think that's it. It's just, again, you connect the dots to a lot of these guys and how they fit and how they match what Michigan is already doing. So a couple more comments in the thread about Pittsburgh. So yeah, low key, one of the best cities. And then John said his sister lived near the park. Yeah, it is. It's seriously, I've been to a lot of MLB parks. I've been to like the Fenways and Wrigley, which both have been updated and they've done a great job. But largely they're dumps, man. Those are old stadiums, So about PNC gives you the vibe, but also new. So since you're basically dying here, I
want to address this real quick though.
I was gonna get to the question.
No, you're gonna get to it.
Well, if you've got your eye on one, go ahead. I was gonna say, let's answer a few questions. Yes,
I wanted to get to this. Mark, I'm not necessarily calling you out or anything, but I don't care if Ohio State gets a lot of 5 stars. A lot of what are those 5 stars?
They're also losing a lot of 5 stars.
Yeah, they're going to lose Edric Houston to Alabama, 5-star. And those 5 stars are, their number 1 5-star, Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't beaten Michigan, hasn't won a Big Ten title. So who cares at this point? You can land all the 5 stars if you want, but if you aren't winning the games that matter, who cares? You're just a feeder program at this point to the NFL. I mean, if you aren't developing these guys and just kind of easing them on to the NFL, I mean, okay, that's great, fine and dandy, but if you aren't winning anything with them, what's the point? I mean, eventually it's going to catch up.
If we're being honest, it reminds me of Harbaugh's first 2016, 17, 18, that wave, those top classes, right? It was like, did Rashawn Gary ever really feel like he got to his full potential? No. Did Donovan Peoples-Jones ever really feel like he got to his full potential? Dax Hill in the last year after the defense switched, it was like, oh, okay, here we go, right? But it was just getting this talent, like John brought up in his thread there. JTT, Jack Sawyer were supposed to be the next amazing edge players. They didn't do anything more than Jalen Harrell or Braden McGregor did, right?
Right.
But more specifically, Ohio State this year went into a desperation mode of sorts this summer, right? Especially when it came to 3 guys that Michigan was interested in as well. Aaron Scott, Bryce West, and then Justin Scott. Michigan got in really late, right? But felt good about. Obviously, I kind of feel like Michigan maybe swung for the fences a year too early when it comes to Scott and West and those guys being Ohio kids and trying to get them out. We'll talk about an Ohio kid Michigan did get. But anyway, they came in and kind of reversed their NIL strategy. They had been kind of pay for play early on, and they were doing things more the Michigan way. And then they decided to go out there and NIL. And the way these collectives work is they basically make the offers first and then try to go get the money, right? And then what happens is when it's time for the checks to come in, maybe the offers get revised a little bit, right? We've already seen Justin Scott end up at Miami with money in the graphic.
Yeah.
Just hilarious to me, right? One of their running backs, is it Jordan Lyle? I feel like I got it flipped. One of their top running backs flipped out. You brought up Houston, probably flipping to Alabama today. They're still not sure if they're going to get Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 player, number 1 wide receiver, that he might flip as well, right? So I'm not trying to – I never want to knock a player for caring about NIL. I think that's not the right angle. But when that's all you care about, those players, it's tough to get them to sign. It's tough to get them to not hit the transfer portal immediately in the next year. We're already seeing that with Texas A&M and Georgia and these classes where mass exoduses of 5 and 4 stars. Not saying you don't go get 5 stars. You get the ones that fit. Will Johnson, right? Donovan Edwards, JJ McCarthy. I know they weren't true 5 stars, but whatever. So I don't have a problem with what Michigan's doing as long as Ohio State continues to chase stars and not fits and build the culture that they want to have to be able to beat Michigan. Like you said, I'm just not concerned. And I think about, again, all the signatures are in. So we'll talk about a couple of guys that I think could make an impact as freshmen or just some of the top of this class, if you will. And I'll get your thoughts on, but in realm of this Ohio conversation, Jordan Marshall.
Yeah.
Mr. Ohio, you've been down, you've talked to him. Again, I hate connecting dots. I'm not trying to put crazy expectations on somebody, but if you don't see Blake Corum when you watch this dude's tape, and again, just from a character standpoint, leadership, work ethic, etc., Marshall better than I do, but getting Mr. Ohio, boom, right? That's a big recruiting win as it is. But from a fit standpoint, man, Jordan Marshall is it, dude.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you can really, I mean, you can see Blake Corum in Jordan Marshall for sure. Not just a physical standpoint, but the dude lives in the gym. I mean, he lives in the gym. And that was something that was Blake Corum's calling card early on. Well, still is obviously, but early on was you can't get him out of the gym, and Michigan had to tell him to stop working out so much because he just would not stop working out. But I see a very similar type of deal with Jordan Marshall, and who knows, he might be walking into a situation where if he's good enough, he could play right away. And running back is one of those positions where you can, be slotted in as a true freshman and you're not going to be like, oh, wow, he's playing right away. I mean, it's one of those positions where it can happen. I mean, offensive line and defensive line coming in as a true freshman and playing right away is more on the rare side and more of the, I don't want to say impressive because that downplays the, anyone else who plays as a true freshman. Obviously you're impressive, but I think Jordan Marshall's walking into a situation where I would not at all be surprised if he comes in and plays early. I mean, he's physical back, 6 foot, 200 pounds, a little bigger, a little taller than Blake Corum, but runs hard.
Good vision.
I mean, Moeller basically ran him into the ground this year. I mean, they relied on him a lot, and rightfully so. I mean, the kid is as talented as they come, and to get a guy like that, the number 1 player in Ohio, and just pluck him as early as they did and to hold on to him without any issues and any drama. Credit to the staff and, credit to the kid too for sticking with it and looking down the Ohio influence and kind of, turning his back to it. So, depending on, where a couple of pieces fall, especially with Donovan Edwards and what he plans to do after the year. I mean, he's walking into a situation that is extremely, extremely favorable for him, in my opinion. I would not at all. I mean, unfortunately, it would be the best case scenario for him would be to be an early enrollee, but unfortunately, his high school program can't allow him to be an early enrollee. So, he'll have to come in the summer. So, I would say the best case scenario for him would have been an early enrollee, and you could pretty much, I wouldn't say guarantee it that he'd play early, but he's got to get caught up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the promise that he brings, I mean, I would not be surprised if he was the overall gem in this class, the most successful player in this class. Another one that all the fans love. He's a big community guy. I know. I remember when I went down to Cincinnati to see him, he was, I think like a day or two after he was planning a kids camp at his high school. So, it's just that type of giving back to the community. I think you'll see a lot of that from him too. So, just a great kid, great family. I think Michigan fans are really going to love him by the time he's gone. By the time he's come through and does what he does for the program, for sure.
Yeah, you talk about, baton passing almost, if you will, right? That was the big question after 2021.
Yeah.
And this resurgence, this refreshment, whatever you want to call it, of the culture at Michigan. And then Hutchinson leaves, Hassan Haskin leaves, Ross leaves, Cade McNamara loses his starting job. And it was like, are they going to be able to maintain this? You used the word sustain earlier, and they have. And now it's these guys handing off to the next class. And you see these dudes who, I'm with you, like I said, could kind of carry that thread, not just on the field success, but also the off the field stuff and the leadership, right? We'll do a few more minutes. I saw Devin Baxter signature just came in. So he's an edge rusher, one of those potential trio of Maryland edge rushers. I wanted to talk about the last two things before we take off, kind of in the vein of what we just talked about with Marshall, and then what I think is the collective prize of this class. You've had some strong opinions. I've mentioned them already, and that's the main target of this class for a long time, quarterback Jaden Davis.
Yep.
That was Michigan's guy for a long time that they had keyed in on. And, we were basically from the barbecue on, right, all the way into spring the following year, constantly talking about Jaden Davis's process, when he's going to commit, what's going on.
Right.
And then it was like, as soon as they got him, everybody flipped to trash in the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm here to tell you, he does have some little mechanics issues. I talked about in my cut-ups issue. He takes a really long pull back and forward, right? Little things with his footwork, right?
Yeah.
He is not a 5-star start day one freshman.
No.
I don't think any quarterback really is. We've seen what happens with these guys that get thrown to the wolves right away.
Right.
It takes a very, very, very specific player to do that. Anyway, that being said, I brought it up earlier. The guy wins state championships. He can be given a task to improve and do it immediately. His completion percentage as a sophomore was like 50-something%, up to 70-something% by his junior year. People said he wasn't playing difficult enough competition. He goes to Providence Day, plays tougher competition, wins state championships, right? Again, not trying to be unfair connecting dots, but when I think about, if you just listen to Jaden Davis talk, if you listen to his family, right, the character, the leadership, and just whatever intangible thing it is to be built to be a winner, you see it with Jaden Davis. Now, I don't know what he's going to be coming in. Obviously, Michigan's recruiting other quarterbacks, right? They have Carter Smith. They're still going after Bryce Underwood. I'm not here to proclaim Jaden Davis is the next McCarthy, any of that. But his just the way he's been talked about in this recruitment has been bizarre to me. I don't know if I've ever really seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's weird. I just it is what it is. I think the way some of us talk about high school kids is weird. I still think, even though I cover it, the whole covering, teenage kids is just weird to begin with, but it's the necessary evil of this business. But I mean, the kid wins. He's a winner. We've talked about this multiple times throughout the months that he's been committed. I don't care what he looks like with shorts on, and I don't care what Elite 11 results are. What I care about is that he wins. He wins football games. He wins state titles. And QB wins aren't exactly a measurable statistic, but it's something to consider. He's not going to be a 4-star top 100 guy if he loses every game he plays. I mean, he's not going to be some guy that all of these all these programs wanted. The Ohio States wanted, the whoever wanted him. If he, if he's losing all the time, if he plays for a bad program. So he's a winner, and that's what Harbaugh likes. A competitor, a winner, and that's all he's done ever since, his whole high school career is he's won. So that's what matters to me, is what a kid looks like in crunch time, in state championships, all that stuff. And he's proven that he's a winner. Yeah, he's not going to come in right away and beat out JJ McCarthy. I mean, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, best case scenario for him is that JJ comes back, he gets a year to develop, and then you go from there and see what happens. And yeah, the stuff that's wrong with him is not something that you can't coach out of a kid.
Well, I mean, there were similar things said about JJ McCarthy as well.
Right. Every kid has bad habits that you have to break. I mean, unless you're taking a kid who's never played the game of football before, you're going to have bad habits that you have to break. Bad technique that they've relied on that worked, but now won't work because, everyone else is more physical than you. But yeah, as a quarterback, there's, you're going to have some bad habits that you're going to have to get coached out of you. No one has perfect form. No one has the perfect game. That's why you go to college, to be coached. Some people get developed. I know that's kind of a rare, some crazy thing I just said, but yeah, you get developed at certain programs, and that's exactly what Jaden Davis is going to do when he arrives on campus. He's going to get developed, and we'll see what he ends up doing. And if he can take care of the football and show that he can lead an offense, he's going to be a successful quarterback at Michigan, because that's what makes JJ so good. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to JJ than just taking care of the football and showing that he can lead the offense, but the main the biggest things is, as a quarterback, to be successful that Jim Harbaugh wants is, do you not turn the ball over, and can you effectively lead an offense to score points? And JJ marks those, tick, tick, big, boom, done. So, Davis he's capable of doing the same thing. So, we'll see what this next year brings. I mean, I think what JJ does, I don't think has a big standing on whether he will, what his projected, I guess, place on the depth chart is next year. I mean, it might, but I
just like the idea of him learning from JJ for
yeah,
a year.
no,
Like
a year under JJ would be the best case scenario for him. And yeah, I mean we'll kind of see where that goes. And I know there's a comment here saying don't want Davis. Well, too bad, you're going to get him. So there's nothing we can say about that.
Someone also asked when he's going to sign. He hasn't set a specific time. I know he has an event where he's being honored for the All-American Bowl tonight at like 8. So I don't know if he would wait.
Well, he's an early enrollee too. So
yeah,
I mean,
he's already enrolled, and so as far as concern about that, I don't have it in front of me what the early enrollee list was. I know you're sick if you're trying to pull that off your brain, but
it was hold on, I had it here just a second ago.
All right, I'll let you look that up, and then the last thing I wanted to touch on
here, I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
So on offense, it's Jaden Davis, Blake Frazier, Jake Guarnera, Andrew Sprague, Brady Prescorn, and on defense, Dominic Nichols, Jeremiah Beasley, and Jacob Oden.
Okay.
And so all 8 of those guys should be with the team for Rose Bowl practices too. So it's so good. I mean, it's good. It's great for these guys. I mean, you get those extra practices that you wouldn't necessarily get. I mean, it's not going to be the ultimate difference maker for these guys' career, but anytime you can get a head start on a kid that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get before, I mean, that's a good thing. So, most of these guys you won't be able to get hands-on with if you're a coach until the spring, because you can't really coach guys during the off season unless you're in the specific period. So, the earlier you can kind of get working on these guys, the better. So, I think it's just great for all 8 of them.
And it doesn't necessarily always translate to the season, like you said, but I'm thinking of 2 guys right now, last year early enrollees, Samaj Morgan and Benjamin Hall. Yep. Now Hall, like I said, dealt with some injuries and ended up just becoming a red shirt. But he came in and did not have a great bowl practice, right? He was there at the bowl practices. And he was coming off of a high school finish where there's a lot of rumors and talk about him because he'd kind of moved to this like third running back role and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, didn't look great in some of the bowl practices, and then shows up in spring. Like, I think that was almost like a learning lesson, if you will, for him. But he showed up in spring in phenomenal shape, was the star of spring camp in the spring game, and was in position to be a contributor as a running back this year. Like I said, I think injuries kind of derailed everything, but that's fine. And then Samaj Morgan obviously is the rookie of the year, if you will, the star freshman. Right. Him and Fred Moore were early, and then Carmelo English came late. Moore got on the field a little bit as well. But like Samaj, that head start, he's arguably wide receiver 3 right now, right? So it doesn't necessarily guarantee it, but it's not going to hurt. And what a cool experience too. Like Shadyville brought up, some of these guys are going to get to go to the Rose Bowl semifinal. Arguably the first or last version of this. Like, it's going to be so different moving to expansion. So let's talk about, like I said, what I think is the prize of this class. You mentioned a couple of the guys. It's the offensive line. Obviously, offensive line has been essential to Michigan's success in the last few years, back-to-back Joe Moore awards. This year, it's like, it's disappointing that they're arguably only a top 10 offensive line and not the best offensive line in the country. But when I look at this group, few things stick out to me. Number one, 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'6", right? 290, 320, 290, right? Big boys already. Ohio, Missouri, Texas, Florida, right? 2 Ohio kids. Blake Frazier's from Austin, Texas, obviously a legacy. His father, Steve, was on the 97 national championship team. But I can literally go and tell you right now, Andrew Sprague, left tackle. He's up there with Marshall in my mind as who's going to end up being the best player in this class. Yeah. Yep. I think Sprague is, when I think about, again, connecting dots, high expectations, probably not fair to put on him, But when I think about the number 77 and some of the elite left tackles Michigan has had, Sprague is the best one of those prospects I think we've seen in a while. Luke Hamilton, here's your left guard, right? Jake G, there's your center. Blake Frazier, I've brought this up again. Here's another dot connection, unfair expectations. I'm talking about ceilings with these guys. I'm not saying this is what they're going to be. But again, when I watch the tape with Blake Frazier, I see Zach Zinter. I think he's an athletic. Right now he's playing right tackle. I think he's athletic. He'd be a great fit at right guard. And then you've got Ben Roebuck, 6'7", 320.
Yeah.
Standing at right tackle. That's it right there. Boom. Left to right. These 5 guys, a couple of them are probably going to have an opportunity to compete as sophomores. By junior year, we could literally see all 5 of them across the line. This was Michigan finding the guys they wanted, taking the commits, building a cohesive. We've been hearing about this blue wall they've been trying to build since Harbaugh got here. Just this cohesive offensive line unit. Arguably, better prospects came along. We talked about, whether this team was in position to accept Bennett Warren, right? Like that's how they felt about this group, rankings aside. Sorry, I've rambled on this, but I just think this is, we talked about, I don't remember if you were here when I talked, or if this was before you came on, when I talked with Seth about just how tight knit this group is as a class.
Yeah. And
how they've kind of recruited each other, just how they've communicated with each other. The offensive line has almost been like a group within the group, right? I mean, it's just what a locked in set of dudes. And I just think individually, Jeremiah Beasley could be a real game changer. We've talked about Davis and Jordan Marshall, and I like Cole Sullivan's potential on the edge. There's a lot of these guys, but just at the end of the day, I think the offensive line, these 5 guys might be the story of this class years from now.
Yeah, no, I think the chemistry is the big thing on this one. The whole class too, not just necessarily these 5 100%. Guys. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you need chemistry more than on the lines, both ways. You need to know what each guy is doing up and down the line. You need to know what each guy whose responsibility it is, and to take care of each other. And that goes both offense and defense. So having that built-in chemistry already with these 5 guys is huge. And, they're coming in great size. It's not like, they're coming in way undersized. I mean, just needs to add a little weight, which, shouldn't be a problem for offensive linemen at all. Yeah, I mean, again, you can see it. The 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'6", 6'4".
Monsters.
I mean, big dudes. And dudes that will they're not afraid to smash your face in too. And that's exactly what Sharon Moore loves. And that's his bread and butter. So, yeah, I would not be shocked one bit to see this group play as a 5-man group here before it's all said and done. They're heading into a room that's filled with talent from top to bottom. So, when that happens, I don't know, but that'll be up to them to kind of decide when they're going to play. I mean, I think Jake Guarnera is a little underrated from where he is right now, from a 3-star guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, just now, kind of,
it's tough to get highly rated as a center.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big thing with Michigan's class in general, right? When you're not going out and getting 5-star skill players at wide receiver, right? And you're focusing on interior offensive linemen and linebackers that are currently kind of hybrid and we don't know where they're going to fit. That's going to affect your recruiting rankings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Guarnera is still pretty much new to the position. This is his first year playing full-time center for his high school. So, a lot to learn there, but if you want to learn how to play the offensive line position, you're coming to the right place. So, again, the whole, I feel like I'm repeating myself and using the same point over and over again, but I mean, it just shows what this class is. Mm-hmm. It's that you can see the picture, you can see the promise, you can see the blueprint. And now it's up for the staff to develop that. But I mean, you just have to look at the measurables, and say, okay, yeah, you can definitely see it. You can get where they're going with this. So, and no, there's no better example of that than the offensive line, and the commits they picked up in that class. So, yeah, and they weren't really talked about much because they landed them quickly, real in quick succession, and that was it. But Roebuck has the goods to be really good. Sprague, one of the best. I mean, even Blake Frazier too. I can't even remember. A legacy. There we go. There's the word. He's a legacy recruit, so he knows this is his dream. He knows. His dad's been through it. He knows how to. His dad was a good player himself, so.
Blocked for some quarterback named Tom Brady.
Yeah, no big deal. But yeah, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like with this class, and people are going to be obsessed with rankings and things like that. And people are going to be like, "Oh, wow, Michigan is what is Michigan's rank right now?" I know it's been
12.
fluctuating because of other commits and
I think I saw 12, but
flips elsewhere. Yeah, 12. Okay, that's not bad. That's about right where
it's what they've been doing the last few years.
Right, that's right where they have been in the past couple of years. Yeah, I mean, would you like a top 5 class? Yeah, sure. I mean, but we've seen what Michigan has done with a top 5 class before. Not much. Not much recently. So
someone said something in the comments. We talked about it a little bit earlier with Marion Stewart signing on. I think that's the one spot where recruiting wise, we know, Darius Clemens hasn't really made an impact yet. Michigan's looking at a couple of guys in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
We thought maybe a couple other dudes would take a step this year. And that I think that's a spot where Michigan's style of play and recruiting, where it's like, there might be a need to address there, right? There's a lot of really talented receivers on the team already and coming in. I just mentioned Stewart. They're also similar, right? In terms of height, size, athletic ability, lining up in the slot as a Z, guy that's going to get on the field in special teams or whatever. So that's the one where I see some people, maybe criticize a little bit and they go, I kind of get it, but they'll have to prove it first.
Right.
Potentially, but yeah, back to the offensive line. I'm with you. So much of it is timing, right? You look at a guy like Giovanni El-Hadi, who could easily be starting the last 2 years. And is starting on probably any other roster in all of college football. But Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter both come back last year, and he'll obviously start. So a lot of it's gonna be timing for these guys. But Sprague's definitely. I mean, I don't think anybody thought Mason Cole was going to start as a freshman, right? And I don't expect any of these guys to start as freshmen. Maybe they'll play early in the 2D, but I think Sprague's a guy I could see as a sophomore pushing at left tackle. I think Roebuck too is another tackle I could see pushing. And Frazier, you see it with his frame. Once he adds a little bit of weight, I think he's just going to be a monster. Again, at right guard is where I think he's going, but it's a deep room. They've got time to refine those guys, if you will. So I don't know. Is there any, did I miss a signature there?
Devin Baxter was in. I don't know. We kind of touched on him a little bit, but yeah, no, Michigan's doing us no favors because they have zero coverage on signing day.
They're just like retweeting every now.
Yeah, it's like it's the only college program that's not doing any coverage for signing day. I don't know what's going on there. That's weird. They're only retweeting stuff, so I don't know. Whatever. But anyway.
Well,
I'm only saying that for selfish reasons because I want to know. I want to know without having to put any effort in and look.
Right. So we are running a couple active live blogs and threads today. So over at michigan.rivals.com, we have our signing day hub where we are. As soon as a player signs, we are putting in their tweet or social media announcement that they signed, and then just kind of a quick recap of what their recruitment was like and their outlook and how we think their development and role will play out here at Michigan. We're plugging those in as the signatures come in. We also have a live thread over at the Den where Josh is doing a lot of what he's doing now and answering questions and, posting intel and things as it comes in there. So you can hang out with us, Maize and Blue Review, over at michigan.rivals.com and then follow along as signing day unfolds. And then, of course, we're going to hope to have, now that Josh is getting closer to living, we'll have a Hail to the Podcast episode soon. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how we feel by the end of the day. But recapping signing day. Like I said, we're not expecting any fireworks other than Lugard Edekpe, hopefully joining the Maize and Blue today with a commitment, and then Gatlin Bear we expect to push out till February. So make sure, again, you're over at michigan.rivals.com following there. If you're watching us live right now, like, subscribe, and do the notification bell so you know when we go live with shows like this. Dennis with Afternoon Live during the day, and then, of course, like I said, Hail to the Podcast. When those goes live, we'll have more coverage there as well. Make sure you're following us on Twitter as well. We've got them up on the screen at Trevor McHugh, at Josh Henschke. We'll be tweeting all day as well as the news starts to come in. Josh, before we go, I know we've kind of talked big picture. Like you said, it's easy to repeat yourself with the theme of
I
this
do have a
class.
quick announcement, though.
I was going to ask you. The thread is just consistent through this class. So do you have anything to add before we go?
I do. Stick around at 10:30 because Dennis Fithian will be interviewing Owen Wafel at 10:30.
Awesome.
To discuss his signing. We're hoping to get more discussions with more players throughout the day, and Dennis will go live throughout the day as needed. But 10:30, 9 minutes, he will be live with Owen Wafel to discuss his signing and things of that nature. Should be fun. Always appreciate Dennis. I always like this time of the year because he always gets kids to go on live. And I know last year, I can't remember, I forgot who it was. I think it was DJ Waller said some good stuff last year to him too. So he always gets the goods. So stick around for that and look out for our channels throughout the day. I mean, it may randomly pop up that he gets an interview, and so we may not necessarily announce it beforehand like we did Wafel, but keep an eye locked on our channels just in case we get any more interviews throughout the day.
Yep. And again, notification bell, and you'll know anytime we go live if Dennis is able to snag another interview of sorts. So I've seen a lot of folks here been with us throughout the morning, bright and early on signing day. Appreciate you guys asking questions, contributing to the conversation over there as we've gone through some of the signatures that have come in. Again, the conversation is going to continue over at michigan.rivals.com. If you're not signed up already, now is the time. Obviously, all of the intel on signing day, and Josh has an interesting nugget on Jim Harbaugh, the contract situation in a meeting that occurred yesterday. And then obviously the Rose Bowl against Alabama coming up, and where we're really starting to get into that and some of our premium content, game preview, etc. So as always, thank you for joining us here on the Maize and Blue Review YouTube channel. We appreciate you being a part of our community over at michigan.rivals.com, and we will see you all soon here with Maize and Blue Review.